A 72-year-old gentleman once shared something with me that really stuck. He said, "Doc, I've been doing it the same way for 50 years, but lately something just feels off." Now, he wasn't sick. He hadn't started any new medications, but something was quietly affecting his body and he had no idea what it was. It turned out the issue wasn't masturbation itself, but how he was doing it. And it was slowly taking a toll on his heart, his prostate, and even his ability to feel pleasure. I'm Dr. Mohit Kara. For over 60 years, I've worked with men over 60 to help them maintain their strength, keep their circulation healthy, and feel confident without shame, pills, or guesswork. You may have been told for years that self-pleasure is perfectly healthy, and in many ways, it still is. But after 60, certain private habits that once seemed harmless can slowly start to do damage, often without any warning signs at all. In this video, I'll walk you through 7 common mistakes older men often make when it comes to masturbation and how to correct them before they start affecting your energy, performance, or long-term health. And just a heads up, mistake number 6 is the one nearly every man gets wrong. Now, before we begin, if you haven't already subscribed, this is a great time to hit that button and turn on the bell so you don't miss any future advice made specifically for men over 60. And if this video resonates with you, type the number 1 in the comments. If it doesn't, type 0. Your feedback helps me make content that's more helpful to you. Let's dive into the first mistake, a habit that's become more and more common in recent years, and yet it slowly changes how your brain and body respond to pleasure without you even realizing it. Mistake 1 is using pornography as your main source of stimulation. Over the years, I've had many men in their late 60s or early 70s sit across from me with the same quiet concern. They'll say, "Doctor, I just don't feel much anymore. It's like I've gone numb and I don't know what happened." So I ask them a simple question: how often do you watch pornography? Almost every time, they lower their gaze not because they feel embarrassed, but because it never occurred to them that it might be part of the problem. Here's what's happening. After 60, your brain's pleasure system, what we call the dopamine system, doesn't respond quite as quickly or as strongly as it used to. So when you watch fast, intense, and constant clips of adult content, your brain gets flooded with more stimulation than it was designed to handle. And if you keep doing that day after day, week after week, your brain starts to adapt in the worst way. It starts to numb itself. That means the natural spark of pleasure you once felt, whether through touch or intimacy, begins to fade. Things don't feel the same. Your body doesn't respond as quickly. And even if you're still in good physical health, your ability to feel connected or satisfied slowly slips away. What's really heartbreaking is how many men end up blaming themselves. They think it's just part of getting older, but often it's not age, it's overstimulation. And if you don't reset your brain's response system, that dull, numb feeling can last for years, even decades. So, if you've noticed that you're not as sensitive as you once were, or that you don't feel as connected or satisfied, it's worth paying attention to this first mistake. It may be the hidden reason why things feel different now. And believe it or not, the next mistake has nothing to do with what you watch. It has to do with where you are when you do it, and how that environment might be quietly harming your body in ways you've never considered. Mistake 2 is masturbating while sitting on the toilet. At first glance, this might seem harmless, even convenient. I've spoken with plenty of older men who say that the bathroom has become their safe space. It's private. The door locks. No one interrupts. It feels familiar and secure. But here's what most don't realize. Doing this while sitting, especially in that hunched-over position many men take on the toilet, can quietly cause more harm than good. As we get older, circulation becomes one of the most important things to look after. Good blood flow supports sexual function, keeps the prostate healthy, and helps your body recover properly afterward. But when you sit for long periods, especially with your body bent forward like you are on the toilet, you're actually cutting off blood flow to your pelvic area. That position puts pressure on your prostate. It tightens the muscles in your pelvic floor, and it strains nerves that are already more delicate with age. I've seen it time and again. Men in their 60s and 70s start to notice swelling, dribbling after they pee, trouble emptying their bladder, or an ache in the groin. But they never connect the dots back to this one quiet habit. As a urologist, I've seen the scans. I've listened to their stories, and I've followed up on their results. And I can tell you with full confidence what seems like a small, private choice can slowly create a domino effect that makes both intimacy and urination more difficult over time. Thankfully, the solution is simple. It starts with awareness. If this feels familiar, think about changing your environment. Try standing. Try reclining. Give your pelvic area room to breathe and let the blood circulate freely. Your prostate, even if it can't speak, is quietly asking for some relief from all that pressure. And if you thought this mistake was surprising, wait until you hear the next one. It's something almost every older man does without even thinking about it. But each time they do, it's slowly rewiring their body to feel less instead of more. Mistake 3 is rushing the experience. This is something I see all the time, especially with men who have spent decades juggling responsibilities, routines, or who've simply learned to keep their private moments quick and discreet. For many, self-pleasure has become something to get over with, a task to check off rather than something to actually enjoy or feel deeply. But here's where that becomes a problem. After 60, your body doesn't handle stress or urgency the way it used to. In fact, rushing through moments of pleasure can actually send your nervous system into a state of tension. Your heart rate climbs to fast, blood vessels tighten, and the relaxing, feel-good chemicals your body naturally produces like oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin don't get released the way they should. You might reach climax, yes, but instead of feeling relaxed or satisfied, you're left feeling drained, maybe even empty. Worse still, when you make this rushed pace a regular habit, your body starts to believe that's the normal way to experience pleasure: fast, shallow, and disconnected. Over time, that habit takes a toll. You may find it harder to stay aroused or harder to enjoy time with a partner. And again, many men assume it's just a part of aging. But in reality, it's the constant pressure to be quick that's quietly training the body to feel less. So, what's the fix? Slow down. Let each moment be deliberate. Your body still has the ability to feel deeply, it just needs the chance to do so. Breathe. Pause. Take your time. There's no rush. There's no finish line. Just the simple act of being present in your body. And speaking of presence, there's one part of the body that's often completely overlooked, yet it plays a huge role in everything from erections to bladder control. Most men don't even know it exists, and yet it's one of the most powerful tools for maintaining health as you age. Mistake 4 is ignoring the pelvic floor. Now, if you haven't heard of the pelvic floor before, you're not alone. Most men haven't. But it's one of the most important muscle groups you've got, especially after 60. This group of muscles sits beneath your bladder and supports your prostate and sexual organs. It's the hidden foundation for everything from urination to erections to climax. When these muscles are weak or neglected, a lot of issues start to show up, and they do so quietly until one day you can't ignore them anymore. I remember a man in his late 60s, once a proud athlete and devoted father. He came to me saying, "Doc, I eat well, I exercise, but something's not working anymore." What he didn't realize was that while his upper body and legs were strong, his pelvic floor had slowly become inactive. Years of sitting, holding, and stress around the belly, and not paying attention to that part of his body had left him disconnected and struggling. And it's not just about weakness. When men bear down and push during masturbation or just ignore these muscles altogether, they put unnecessary pressure on the prostate. That only makes things worse. Over time, you can end up with leaks, dribbling, weaker erections, and less sensation during climax. It doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in slowly, year by year. But here's the good news: you can wake those muscles back up. Start by gently tightening the same muscles you'd use to stop a stream of urine. Doing this during arousal helps build awareness and strength. With time and consistency, this simple action can bring back both physical control and a greater sense of confidence. And that brings us to another issue, something a lot of men wonder about but rarely talk about out loud. It's not about how you do it, but how often. Because, believe it or not, both too much and too little can throw your whole system off balance. Mistake 5 is getting the frequency wrong, either doing it too often or not enough. This is a tricky subject for many older men. Some quietly worrying they're doing it too much. Others feel like they've gone too long without. And somewhere between the confusion, the outdated advice, and the silence, a lot of men over 60 end up feeling unsure, even isolated. Here's what I've seen in my years of practice. Both extremes can lead to problems. When a man masturbates too often, whether out of habit, boredom, or emotional stress, his body often struggles to keep up. Energy levels drop. The prostate gets irritated. And over time, it may take longer to recover, or he may notice that real, meaningful intimacy no longer feels as appealing. The act becomes more of a routine than a desire, and that slowly dulls the nervous system and drains vitality. On the flip side, some men stop altogether. Maybe it's because of medication, health concerns, religious beliefs, or the idea that they're just too old now. But what they don't realize is that the body, like any other system, needs regular movement and stimulation to stay healthy. Sexual arousal, even if you don't climax, keeps blood flowing to the genitals. It nourishes the nerves and helps maintain erectile function. When this stops for too long, the tissues begin to weaken. Desire fades, and connection, both emotional and physical, starts to disappear without warning. There's no magic number that fits everyone. But for most men over 60, doing it once or twice a week slowly, mindfully, and with intention is often just right. It keeps the body engaged, restores balance, and avoids the wear and tear that comes from overdoing it. What matters most isn't counting the times. It's listening to your body. As we get older, the body speaks more softly, but it still speaks. The key is learning to hear it again. And even if you're doing everything right, using moderation, taking your time, there's one mistake that can still undo it all. It's something most men do without thinking, and it silently damages the nerves, changes the tissue, and reshapes your body over time. Mistake 6 is using too much pressure or force. This is one of the most common and overlooked habits I see in older men, and also one of the most damaging. I can't tell you how many men have sat across from me, frustrated and confused, saying things like, "Doc, I just don't feel as much as I used to," or "It's taking more effort than ever." And more often than not, behind those words is a simple, silent habit they never thought twice about: pressing too hard or gripping too tightly when they touch themselves. It's completely understandable. As sensitivity fades with age, the natural instinct is to increase the intensity, to squeeze harder, rub faster, apply more force just to try and feel something again. But here's what your body is really trying to tell you: more force doesn't bring back the feeling. In fact, it's doing the opposite. It's wearing your body down. The nerves in the penis are delicate, especially as we get older. Years of rough handling, tight grips, aggressive friction, or using hard surfaces can lead to real physical damage. I've seen micro tears in the tissue, loss of elasticity, and even internal scarring that isn't visible on the outside. These issues can lead to reduced blood flow, pain during arousal, or a gradual curve in the shape of the penis, something many men don't notice until it's already progressed. And it's not just physical. When pleasure becomes something you have to fight for, it stops being joyful. It becomes a struggle. That mental shift alone can make your body tense, anxious, and less responsive. Over time, your nervous system learns to brace itself instead of relax, and that takes a serious toll on your ability to enjoy any kind of intimacy. So, what can you do? Start by softening your approach. Use a lighter touch. Slow movements. Give your body space to respond naturally. Your nervous system and your future self will thank you for it. And this brings us to the final mistake. This one goes deeper than your technique, deeper than your muscles or nerves. It's not something you can see, but it's something you can definitely feel, or rather not feel. And for many men, it's the one that hurts the most. Mistake 7 is masturbating without emotion, connection, or intention. This is the most invisible mistake of all, and often the most painful. It's not about what you do, or how often, or even where. It's about how you feel when you do it. Over time, many older men begin to treat self-pleasure like a chore. It becomes mechanical, routine, something done out of habit or even loneliness. The emotional connection fades, and what once brought comfort or joy turns into something empty or numb. I've spoken with so many men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s who say it just doesn't feel like it used to, or I don't even know why I do it anymore. And what they're really expressing is a kind of loss not of function, but of meaning. Their bodies may still respond, but their hearts aren't in it. There's no warmth, no presence, no sense of being connected to themselves. And that emotional distance, believe it or not, has a real physical cost. When self-pleasure is stripped of emotion, your brain stops releasing the hormones that make you feel good, like oxytocin, which lifts your mood, or dopamine, which gives you motivation. You may still climax, but there's no emotional reward, just a kind of flatness, a shadow of what the experience used to be. And worse, this kind of pattern teaches your brain and body that pleasure is supposed to be disconnected, joyless, and done in silence. That couldn't be further from the truth. Even solo touch can be meaningful. It can be mindful. It can be a way to reconnect with your body, not in shame, but with gratitude. Your body is still yours. It still feels. It still matters. Now that we've looked at all 7 of these common mistakes, let's bring everything together. Because the real change happens not just when you avoid harm, but when you start to rebuild your connection to your own body with strength, with confidence, and with care. Ignoring the bigger picture won't help. Your body is still speaking to you, even if it speaks more quietly now. And if you've stayed with me this far, I want to talk to you not just as a doctor, but as someone who truly respects the path you're walking. Over the years, I've seen far too many good men carry their struggles in silence. They blame age. They blame time. Sometimes, they even blame themselves. But the truth is, no one ever taught us how to take care of our sexual health as we get older. You've just heard the 7 most common mistakes men make when it comes to masturbation in their later years. And none of them come from carelessness. They come from habit, from decades of doing what once worked without realizing that the body, like life, changes. Circulation slows. The prostate becomes more sensitive. The nervous system no longer tolerates rough handling or neglect. And the heart, not the beating one, but the feeling one, longs for something deeper than just stimulation. It longs for meaning. Let me be clear, there's nothing shameful about touching yourself. There's nothing wrong with seeking comfort, relief, or even joy through your own body. What becomes harmful is when we stop noticing, when we disconnect, when we rush, when we try to force something that no longer works the way it once did. You see, all 7 mistakes: using porn too often, sitting in poor positions, rushing, neglecting the pelvic floor, doing it too much or too little, using too much pressure, and feeling emotionally numb have one thing in common: disconnection. And that is the real danger. Not aging, not desire, but losing your sense of connection to your own body, your own pleasure, and your own vitality. But here's the hopeful part. It's not too late. It never is. Your body is still alive. It still wants your attention, your care, your respect. Just like an old car needs a different kind of care, your body does too. That doesn't make it less valuable. In fact, it makes it more sacred. So, what do you do now? Start small. Be gentle. Be curious. Learn the language of your body again. Don't chase performance or sensation. Take your time. Breathe. Feel. And above all, never stop believing that connection is still possible within yourself and with others. I've seen men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond rediscover their health, their energy, even their joy. Not because they tried harder, but because they stopped seeing aging as the end and started seeing it as a shift. You deserve that shift. You deserve to feel again, To live with strength, dignity, and awareness even in the most private corners of your life. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about avoiding mistakes. It's about reclaiming something quiet, powerful, and deeply human. It's still there, and it's still yours. If this helped you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with another man who might need to hear these words.